Welcome back. You're still watching Power Breakfast on Citizen TV. It is the news review with me, Fred Indimuli. We're still looking at the headlines this morning with the Professor Jacqueline Odwol, nominated MP, Caleb Kositany, MP Soi, Kimani Wamatangi, Senator Kiambu, and Mohamed Faki, Senator Mombasa County. Just before the break, we're looking at the plan today. Of course, Parliament is having, we talked about the National Assembly having a special sitting this morning. Now, this is a special sitting because naturally on Thursdays they only have a sitting in the afternoon. But today they have a special sitting in the morning to consider and to actually introduce amendments to the electoral laws. These amendments have been pushed by Jubilee Party. NASA affiliate parties yesterday tried to vote against this special sitting. They were totally unable. The vote was 83 to 32, clearly outnumbered, and that means there's a real risk that Jubilee will just definitely have its way on this one. But now this proposed amendments to the electoral laws have had other consequences as well, and that's what's captured on the headline on the front page of the Standard. IEBC party talks stall over poll laws. These talks were hosted yesterday by the IEBC at the Bomas of Kenya, with representatives of both Jubilee and NASA in attendance. The Jubilee team was led by the party Secretary General Raphael Tuju. The NASA team was led by Siaya Senator James Orengo. You can see their faces featuring on the front page of the Standard as well. At the end of it, and they had two sessions in the morning and the afternoon, at the end of it all, there was a stalemate because NASA says they cannot continue with the talks given that Jubilee has already introduced amendments to the electoral laws in Parliament. On the other hand, Jubilee insists that those talks cannot feature the irreducible minimums as given by NASA. And the Standard has actually done us a favor on the front page, listed some of the demands from both Jubilee and NASA. One of the demands by Jubilee is to entrench manual transmission of election results, which they are also proposing in the amendment of the electoral laws. They insist that the opposition cannot force staff changes at IEBC. They want to make it mandatory for the Supreme Court to order a ballot recount in the event of a petition. They reject proposals to have UNDP print ballot papers, and they want the Judicial Service Commission Act reviewed to restructure the JSC. NASA, meanwhile, want IEBC Chief Executive Ezra Chiloba, Deputies Marjan Hassan Marjan, Betty Sungura, 9 other top officials removed. They want Al Ghurair not to print the presidential ballot papers. They want inspection of the IEBC servers. They want to establish a bipartisan technical monitoring committee to oversee implementation of the technology used, and they want appointment of new returning officers in consultation with political parties and candidates. It does not look easy. It does not look easy, and what is happening this morning will definitely make it harder because Jubilee has decided to take a tangent and use the parliamentary route to have its way. NASA has tried now the street way, and they now say that the street protests will now be every Monday and Friday. Each their own demands, each different ways of exercising their power or the power they feel they yield. What way forward, Professor Odwol? Because now everyone is digging in. Oh yes, Senator Matangi, you rightly put it. It's been a while since you last spoke.
Absolutely.
Senator Matangi, what way forward? Because
unless you think I'm talking too much.
Everyone is digging in. Everyone is digging in. No one is giving room. No one is even taking a back step. Every single day we're digging in. It's 25 days to the repeat poll. Don't you think we're actually saying that, okay, fine, let's not have this repeat election?
Yeah, okay, Fred, actually the reason why I had to remind you that it was my opportunity to speak is because in the last discussion, there's something that I wanted to say. And
I hope you don't take us too far back.
For members of the public to understand. Because, you know, this misconception could be there that Jubilee or Parliament is just about to engage in an illegality of going to amend the laws. And it is important that we clear that members of the public should understand that the work of Parliament, immediately the day we took oath of office, the mandate of a member of Parliament is to go into that house and make laws as a legislator, amend others, propose changes. And the way Parliament disposes of its business is through debate. And so what I would be doing is really encouraging my colleagues here you mentioned the numbers were 80 something to 33. For purposes of clarity and record, all the elected members in the National Assembly of NASA are not 33. They're more. So the reason why you find, as you may say, that there's a tyranny of numbers, is that they need to show up. Currently, there is a problem in NASA, which they will own up, my colleagues here, that they have been given gagging orders that when they come to the House, they're not supposed, actually they're not supposed to come. When they come, they're not supposed to contribute to debate, and that is not the way to go about the business of Parliament. So let that be clear. Now, secondly, and to mention just a few things on what you said. See, even without going into so much detail, you can crystallize this into a summary that's very simple. Who wants what between NASA and Jubilee? Jubilee is clear. We want reform of some of the laws so that we can address the issues that arose during that Supreme Court ruling. What does NASA want? NASA wants to pile up more demands and barriers and insist on others irrespective of the fact that timelines may not be congruent or agreeable to that date being met, so that, and that is, I think, I'm trying to summarize.
Yes.
So that's what we are really, clear on this. So that at the end of the day, the ultimate goal is to ensure that either the elections are the electoral system is so paralyzed so that we will not be able to hold an election at that time. And by trying to bend so much and insist on reforms, for example, if you look at some of these things, you had IEBC clearly explaining. You are saying that you cannot have Al Ghurair. They're saying we have a contract with Al Ghurair that lasts 2 years. So we have another 1 year of a signed contract with the company. They have to work. I mean, if remember, and Fred, if you remember what I said in this forum almost a year ago, we made a very big mistake. When we conceded to the demands by NASA the last time to send the last IEBC officials without following the law. That's why you find that the second major demand is to send IEBC officials home. Notwithstanding the fact that in their own internal disciplinary mechanisms, the chairman who is empowered to do that has already taken steps, and he should continue to take that. Remember, this insistence in a fresh election, they're still insisting that they want to have the servers open. And if you ask me, that would be more of an excuse. When Jubilee says that we want to entrench a manual system, ask yourself, and Kenyans should be able to understand this. Supposing we had a manual system and that electronic system, would we be in the problem that we're having today? If they said that electronic systems failed, would have said this is the manual alternative. So if this didn't work, look here. You see, and these results are accurate. So we're also insisting that NASA cannot continue to carry this charade and hide behind the curtain to demand IEBC officials change, because that is not true. Lastly, because you mentioned something critical here about the JSC, and I'll tell you, I would be among the first people to stand up to support an amendment on that requirement by JSC. That, for example, in the appointment of a judge or chief justice, for example, that they only propose one name that is forwarded to the president. That amounts to a fait accompli. I mean, Fred, if you'd rather the president gets to choose from the JSC does their work very well. They come up just like every other position. They come up with alternatives. For example, one, two, three names.
Will be beholden to the executive?
No, absolutely no. That is the rule of natural justice. That's why you have to interview so many people. And then once look at all other proposals. You have 3 names to choose from, or 2, and then you say 1, 2, 3. Such that you had a lot of undercurrent in the talk of how this person.
That brings up a whole debate on the independence of the different arms of government.
Absolutely. But in summary, because I'm sure my colleagues will be saying most of this, we are also insisting that the Supreme Court should, by law, after this, be having a provision whereby a recount is necessary. I say this with tangible evidence myself. After this debacle, I went to the region that I come from, not the county, the region. And I was questioning people, how come that there are issues or stories that there was a photocopy of a Form 34? Do you know, some of the officers are very clear, they tell you, some of the original forms are inside this box that you see, the ballot box.
Yet no single lawyer at the Supreme Court applied for that.
No, they did.
The law
didn't want it open.
Requires, for example, if you want to extract an original Form 34A that was put inside a ballot box by a returning officer, to take a court order for you to take that ballot box to court and have it opened. You know, I mean, some of these things we have to reform.
Okay.
Yeah.
But Senator, before I come to you, Senator, Professor Dwal, between the irreducible minimums by NASA and now these electoral reforms that are being taken through Parliament by Jubilee, that is where the problem is. Is it just a case of everyone digging in just before the fight or before the negotiation? Because probably it's a style for this negotiation. The other question I'll have for you, do you think we're genuinely engaging in these talks with the IEBC? Because even given the representatives that have been sent, do you think Jubilee and NASA are genuinely interested in actually thrashing out a deal? Because the main intention is to iron out some of the issues before the poll rerun. But the kind of digging in we are seeing, and even the kind of representatives, the level of representatives we are sending to the bombers, do you think we're genuine?
I think there's a sense in which we need to search and determine the level of commitment that we have. And I think when you look at the irreducible minimums, and then you look at what Jubilee is asking for, we might want to be very clear who it is that we believe is for reform, and who seems to be business as usual, tyranny, and making sure that you get your way. I would say this, as we talk about this matter, let us not gloss over what it is that happened on August 8th. If you look at the irreducible minimums of NASA, there are very clear definitions of where it is that if you are interested in a credible election, if you are interested in recognizing that the IEBC is an independent institution, if you also would like to respect that the Supreme Court indicated that there were irregularities and illegalities, if you look at the irreducible minimums, you would see that clearly NASA is saying we have a country. We have from 2007 been developed with all these problems of elections. We have tried to make amendments, including determining what mode of transmission. But we just had, for the first time, not just in Kenya but in Africa, an opportunity to lead by showing that if we have a problem, we do not go fight and kill each other or do what. We go back to the law and we check what it is that has happened. But we also recognize the politics has the legal angle, and it also has where it is that you now persuade each other of what would be in the best interest of the people. I would say that when you look at the irreducible minimums, you can clearly see that NASA is saying let's talk. Because NASA is saying, let's talk.
NASA would be willing to give up on some of its irreducible minimum?
I am saying that what NASA is saying, let's talk about what it is that would interfere with getting an election that could be seen, regardless of whoever wins, to be credible. And I'm saying, and I don't think that there is anyone who would disagree with me on this, that when we look at the IEBC, and we look at what Senator Wamatangi was saying, we could see an almost under siege chair, because you could see flying over, there are these memos going this way. We could see when we all look at Kenyatta International Conference Center that day, and we want to recognize that there are ways in which the IEBC does not seem to be that independent. Secondly, we would want to look at the very law we are talking about, and we would see that as we were running to the elections, we did have recourse to law. But a number of issues, for example, as Senator Mamatanga is saying, that when we are dealing with the printing, we know the issues that raised. And we also know, because I happen to have had a chance to serve in coalition government as a permanent secretary, so I am alive to the manner in which you do procurement and how it is that even if you have all these commitments for 2 years, we do have other farms that were there available. So if you truly are asking me, Fred, Is there a sense in which we are looking for political commitment, we are looking for goodwill, we are looking for the interest of the country, we are looking to see that we are not retaining what we have and holding it at whatever cost, but we are saying let's go out there as Kenyans, let's ensure that election is a process, let's look at what it is that will seem to be the shortcoming, and let's see how to go ahead.
Because
I just want to conclude, yes.
It appears like there's no solution. But I believe there must be a solution to this.
Yes, there is.
There must be a solution
yes.
that both parties would be happy with as we go for this repeat election. Because NASA insists, although Jubilee says you're not willing to go for the election, you insist you are ready.
It's clear who is ready to go for election or not, I think.
What do you think is the solution?
The solution really is this. I believe that we cannot run away from August 8th. And we all have the information, the ruling by the dissenting judges, by the others, and we know that elections is a process. And we know the IEBC seems to have admitted themselves that there were some challenges. And we know that when we deal with the IT issues, we still have even this issue of the server that nobody seems to know, which, by the way, in contempt of court, the orders we were never allowed to look at. What we would then say, if these are the irreducible minimums that NASA has said, do these irreducible minimums speak to the challenges that were in the election? And then you would say, when Jubilee comes and they talk about what they are now calling as ways of trying to get us to move ahead, do they look like it is something they want to talk about? My submission is no. Because if you're saying...
But both sides don't look like they want to talk about anything.
If you allow me, just want to say this. Let us not forget that when NASA says irreducible minimums, it is not, like Jubilee is doing, trying to take the independence of the legislature. You see, one of the things I'd like Kenyans to know, I'm glad that I am actually sandwiched by parliamentarians from Jubilee. I am aware, although I could be the junior most parliamentarian, that when you get into parliament, you are an independent body, and your role of legislation is supposed to ensure that you even exercise oversight where you might be seeing tyranny from the executive. I look at the manner in which we are responding. I look at the law that we are proposing. I do not see the independence of the legislature.
Once again, what you're saying, Professor,
I do not
should be the ideal way.
Yes.
But Bwana Kostani, are we saying that probably we should go the Joint Select Committee way? You remember when we had that bipartisan committee that came up with the electoral law, some few changes that helped us move to where we are. Are we saying that that is a possible solution? That probably that's the only way? That probably if this proposed amendments to the electoral law could have been as a result of such a committee from both sides of the House and receive a unanimous support, that it would be the easiest way out?
I think that is where every activity seems to be heading, especially from the NASA side. But I think we don't have time for that. We have to do an election within 60 days. What we need to do now is to make laws that will not put us back where we are, where we have a clear winner, and his victory is stolen because of technicalities that could have been avoided if the law was clear. I was being told by one of our leaders yesterday that in some of the proposals that were made, it's a matter of a word, and must. They mean something totally different. We must add the word must for it to be a better law. Yes. In order for it. And Fred, let us not try and bash Jubilee as if we have a problem. We're the only ones who have a problem with the Supreme Court. I'm sure you have the clip of Raila Odinga's speech during the swearing-in of Joho. He castigated the Supreme Court. He really had an issue before the ruling and before even they went to court. And we as Jubilee also have a problem with the ruling of the Supreme Court. So we are just saying...
So you do agree on quite a number of issues?
Yeah, we agree. Even if we agree on quite a number of issues. And that is why, even if they wanted to be genuine, these laws we are proposing are good for anybody. Let me tell you, the law says the returning officer is the chairman of IEBC. What happens tomorrow if Chibukati falls ill? Like it happened to Ahmed Ibrahim. There will be nobody to announce, to declare, there will be no returning officer to declare the presidential results. And one of the proposals we are saying, the vice chairman acts and can declare results in the absence of the chairman. Is that really a Jubilee law?
if in any case Matiang'i runs for president and he wins, Chiloba will announce him, or the vice chairman, or any other. I don't want to give them hopes that Raila will win, so I'm not mentioning him. So we want to,
he will, by the way.
We want to.
He will in a credible election.
The other thing that that we need to agree on. I have been a director in several parastatals before. Whenever we conduct interviews for CEOs, we forward to the minister 3 names based on the scoring. We forward to the minister 3 names, and the minister chooses from any of the 3. And what he will decide, he looks at gender, he will look at regional balance, all things that are catered for in our country. But on the JSC matter, we are giving the president telling him what he's not going to choose, but just telling the president we have chosen so and so.
And hence my question earlier. Yes. Some of these issues, especially to do with the JSC, they don't appear really directly connected to the repeat presidential poll. Don't you think that some of this should have waited a bit?
Waited for
and waited until Parliament, when Parliament is actually...
Parliament is in session.
The other thing that I wanted
to say, when we talk about independence... Yes, when we talk about independence of the judiciary, independence, where do they derive this independence from? It's from Parliament.
From the people.
It is from
the
Parliament.
Sovereignty of the people.
Yes, it is from Parliament, and the Constitution is by the people. But Parliament is the one that makes laws. Even the Senate doesn't make laws. Parliament is the one that makes laws. We are the ones that will decide how the Supreme Court will conduct its business and all. And we have been given that right by the people who voted for us. And that is why I said Jubilee got the majority of votes. We have the majority of members of Parliament. Not by luck, not because we stole, because the people of Kenya decided that Jubilee is governing well.
There is a misconception that whatever law Parliament makes is good law for the people. Several laws have been struck out by the courts because they are unconstitutional. So the power to appoint the Chief Justice is given to the JSC. The President merely signs the letter of appointment. This debate has been there before, and I don't think Jubilee will win it, because it's an issue that has been discussed over and over again, and whenever it is discussed, they are on the losing end. Number 2, we need a bipartisan group of people, legislators, who can sit down away from their party manifestos and their positions, have a sober discussions on what can be done in this situation.
Because you also agree that NASA is a bit adamant with this.
Yes, we are adamant because once beaten, twice shy. We cannot go into an election with the same people, same conditions, same equipment. Okay. Yet,
no, don't do the Jubilee thing.
The chairman,
propaganda.
The chairman of IEBC and the chief executive officer had a serious disagreement. You saw the memo. Those issues have not been answered. We don't know whether they were buried under the carpet. Yet we are supposed to go in an election in the same conditions. So we need if Parliament is serious, if National Assembly is serious, they should have summoned Chiloba and his group to come and explain why.
Would you, for example, have wanted to contribute to this amendments as proposed by Jubilee? Probably even introduce some of your own ideas from your irreducible minimums through a proper law in Parliament?
You see, at the moment, there's no goodwill from the Jubilee side. On the one hand, they are saying that there's no time to get new people to supervise the election. There's no time to replace the Chilobas and what have you. On the same time, they are saying that we have time to amend this law so that they can be ready for the election on 26th. So instead of discussing those laws and amendments, why don't they summon Chiloba and his group to come and explain why, for instance, the satellite phones were not used, why there was this problem, why did the Supreme Court castigate them as a result of the election?
Senator, you were in Parliament when that Joint Select Committee was formed,
yes.
And it was very effective. At least the country was able to move forward in a very short period of time. Don't you think that's the kind of approach we need right now? Because the way we are going, what you're seeing at Bomas, and the kind of headlines we are reading this morning, it appears even the talks today will head nowhere. That probably we need to rethink about our approach and probably learn from our own history. A very recent history, just about November, October last year, where we came up with a Joint Select Committee and it actually worked.
Well, one could say so, depending on which angle you look at it. But
depending on the political angle.
But in this current situation, first I would say, well, if you want to talk ideally, you could say so. But if you want to be a realist as to what is the best way forward for this country, you discard that, because you see, once we start encouraging this scenario repeatedly, that for you to have your way, you have to create a green block. If things are moving, stand in the way. Create as much drama and trouble and roadblocks as much as you can.
Doesn't it depend where
then
you're
moving? Going to invite a scenario whereby you will now be allowed to get to talk, and once you talk, you can now put in the things you want to put in law. And let me say this: one, can we all be in agreement, because the country also agrees that part of even what the resolutions that bipartisan committee came up with did not help this country. I mean, one, it is that committee that encouraged and saw and created leeway for us to circumvent the Constitution and send officers who are constitutionally in office home. And then some fellows who are sitting somewhere by some side and saying, oh, give them 50 bob each. No, you can give them 1 million, give them whatever. And these are people who have the security of the Constitution to be in office. You know, and then you have a small committee that have been formulated of a few people. So they are saying that this is how you send these people home. So what I'm saying is this: you know, the sooner, and this is the language we need to use, in my opinion, as a political leader, you know, as the sooner we get honest about what we want, and especially NASA, because one, look at the dailies, what they're saying. They have insisted that they're going to be having demos every Monday. When they say they're going to be having demonstrations every Monday, what are they saying to Kenyans? That they're intending to go to this election, that they mean well? The answer is no. When the Supreme Court ruling was read, the judgment was read, the first thing they did, even before they absorbed the real detail, they went out, and the declaration by the leader of NASA was simple: there will be no election. And I remember, if you saw it in the dailies the other day, some interviews, many carried even by your own journalists here in Royal Media, asking the NASA leader, what is this that you're telling the country, that there will be no election? And then he keeps on saying, oh, you know, if you have an election in one part and no election in the other one, do you call that an election? You insist, what are you saying? He says, it is not going to be a boycott, there will be no election. Now, so my friends, you see, we can keep cutting corners here and saying all this.
So you're saying no? Clear. You're saying no to a bipartisan.
It is clear here that you know, eventually, once the talks are held in Bomas, they could end up there. But that is not the solution that this country requires right now. We know we have a few days, less than 25 days now, to go to an election.
Yes.
Can we put the right mechanism to have an election, have a president, have a government that is moving, you know, cast our ballot and determine through our sovereign power
well said, Senator. Time now for another break. When we come back, CS for Internal Security, Fred Matiang'i says he will not return Raila Odinga's security. Meanwhile, NASA says it may call for a boycott of some funds over sabotage. We'll be discussing that on Power Breakfast.